Hey everyone. Why doesn't everybody come and move forward? Because it's not a huge crowd and we really want this to be a discussion. Okay, okay, we'll move this way. All right, so this is the second in the lecture series. Okay, okay. Is everybody here? Okay. So welcome to the second in the lecture series called Undrawing, which is being hosted by the ADR2 class. And the reason that we're doing this is because of a very, what do we call it? A big debate that happened in the faculty meeting at the beginning of the semester about the new class that you guys are taking this semester. So the first lecture was by Bernard Schimi, who's just arrived, and the second is going to be by Juan Herreras, the title of which is Drawing to Talk to Others. He's got a fantastic practice in Madrid in Spain, Seville. And you should all look up his work, and he teaches here at the school. He's a professor of practice. But today he's going to focus on how drawing intersects with his practice and with his intellectual practice as well. So, Juan.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for coming and for inviting me to this lecture that has obliged to organize some documents and to think a little bit about this conversation that we are having about drawing and representation in an informal way in the school, but in one moment you have to put some stuff together and to say something, no? This title of Drawing to Talk to Others is an ambiguous thing, no? It's like it's an attempt to talk about the inverse way that usually we understand drawing in the creative process, like something introspective, something personal, associated to quite creative moments, no? And to understanding it like exactly the opposite, like the way to go to others, to establish conversations, to talk, to confront. Of course, nothing new to say about drawing as a thinking process. But perhaps we have to open a door about this question of thinking like not necessarily something intimate, but something open to this discussion. So I think we always have thought that we have drawing to draw as an activity to design, but also to draw to communicate, no? But usually we have this idea that communicate is like a strategic skill. So you first have to design, and after you have to communicate. So the communication activity is not exactly accepted like design part of as a part of the design process. It's more like a secondary skill, something that you have to do to convince or to transmit an ideas already established. I think that this is not exactly a problem, but this is an aspect of our work that we could take new benefits from it, is that the idea of communication is also the moment of redraw the project, to rethink the project, and to understand where are really the weak and the strong strengths, the weak points and the strengths of the process, and how can we really work, how can we really understand this moment of communication, not only like non-productive in terms of design work, like you know, by others. This signal in the drawings, like done by others, to be built by others or thought by others. How can we really recuperate this moment and reintroduce into the design process? No, so my thesis here could be everything is part of the design process. We are designing from the very beginning till the end. The design is not something that is done at the beginning, and after that a group of people, collaborators or staff in your office make a lot of drawings that represent, develop, or enlarge these few ideas that were at the beginning as the only traditionally considered like the creative moment. No? So in marketing, there is a practice that I'm really interested, is that very usually the experts in communication don't use images to transmit an idea to a client, for example. They draw them in front of this person. So this is not a sketch done in the solitude of a train or a plane. It's not from a Moleskine. It's a drawing done in front of one person, asking for a commission, in this case a small house, the extension of an existing very, very small rural construction to transform it into a kind of rural refugee for weekends. No? So in this case, this is a communication instrument, but of course it's part of the design process, because I was not so sure about the form or the project itself, but I was sure about the concept that this was a traditional construction done to fight against the winter and to protect some animals in the country. But this person were asking us to do something for the whole year. So we said we need to add another construction, which is the summer one. No, we will have the winter one and the summer one. So it's an idea about not using architecture only to protect yourself, but also to expand your relation with the landscape. This completely simple idea is through this, is what is in this drawing. I'm not going to show the buildings resulting, but in this case, it's exactly like this. No? That's because I'm not engaged with this fetishist idea of sketching, but more with the idea of if we are able of transmitting our concepts and involve the others in the conversation. So, talking about sketching, one of the problems of sketching is that only you can do the sketch. No? Only the architect, the chef of the office, or the principal can do them. No? But if you do models like this in 6 minutes or 8 minutes, each of them, everybody can do. No? So you can have teams of people doing these forms, which are sketches, not produced by the inspiration, no? Like divine inspiration. They are produced by conversations between people, and they are out of scale. They are completely generic. We could say they are ideas of architecture. That means that in an office you can create a kind of library of ideas of architecture that can be discussed, reused, or recuperate for other projects or for other situations, not necessarily to design buildings. No? This is, for example, on the right, this is Jens Richter, is the director of our office. This is our model shop. And we, in every project we do in our office, we do one of these models. The scale of the buildings is not related to the scale of the models. And we produce a lot of them. So these are models that most of times are destroyed, and and we can use them to have these conversations between people, and nobody has a personal relation with them. So if you decide changes or refuse completely a few of them, you are not like attempting against the personal projection or the creativity. So I really feel quite comfortable with this concept of sketching, where I think has a strong connection with the pedagogical activity. After teaching for 30 years, finally you take some routines from the academical environment into your office, and from your office into your academical environment. So this idea of the jury, let's say, is working, and for us is quite efficient. So we could say this is neutral. This is something that we use to make some very important decisions. For example, one concept that I like and I think it's very important, especially, for example, in competitions, is to decide the amount of architecture. How much architecture we are going to put here, no? It's like this question of the Seagram by Mies van der Rohe, deciding which is the perfect dimension or the perfect scale, the perfect proportion of the building, and the rest of the program is in the back, no? So we discuss a lot about how much architecture this site accepts, or this skyline of the city supports, and for that we use these strategies, no? So they have all the characteristics of the sketch, no? They're fast and personal, and they're a matter of discussion, no? And sometimes those models are transformed into drawings, no? Usually it's not happening in the reverse, but to change them or to make decisions, we go back to the drawing. And this is another, let me say, tradition, no? Most of the drawings and the documents I'm going to show are competitions. And when we do a competition, there are two people in our office. Usually they are the youngest or the just arrived persons. And one of them has to do one axiom of the building, of the project, and has to update the axiom every day as the project is changing, so it's completely pressed. And the other person has to do a construction section of the facade. We will see some of it. So this is like the slow process sketching, only to produce one drawing by one person, who has to incorporate every change, no? And of course we test, and we can make decisions, and all these drawings are coming from these innocent workers of the project, trying to create these classifications or these taxonomies of the projects, the ingredients, the elements, again with this idea that perhaps you can use in other cases, no? This is this second drawing that one person perhaps not having necessarily a lot of knowledge in terms of construction or technology do. I'm going to do this. Okay. It's a huge drawing, and this drawing is always exactly the same. It's one section of the facade with 2 floors, the outside elevation and the inside one, and the floor plan. You see here is appearing the floor plan of these drawings. These drawings are always done till the moment that if you do it bigger, the space appears. So we could say they are completely. I'm going to show the section again here, no? So they are narrow or thin enough to be generic as possible. They are not sections of the building, They are not sections of the rooms. They are not done to decide the proportion between the depth and the free height. They are really done to invent or to prepare a system for every project. And this system is not exactly a construction system. It's more a system, it's a collection of rules to make decisions and to work knowing or asking or making permanently the question of if this is the system, inside this system, how we solve this specific problem. The idea is that the detail disappears because the system tries to tell how that detail should be solved or should be dissolved in the system. So all these drawings, I have a few of them, as you have seen already. This is, for example, for the new museum in Oslo. They are more or less exactly as they were in the competition. And it's after doing that drawing that we become into the discussion about the changes or the problems that drawing has through the sketching. So in this process, the sketching is more precise, is more technical, is more the confluence of different people than the technical drawing that is produced by one person and like an act of fetishism. So this collection of the super technical drawings that these were, for example, exhibited in the last Venice Biennale, like the objects of fetishism of our office, not these sketches. No? So this is a building, the Hispasat Satellites company. Perhaps you have seen some of these pictures, but it's again the same. No? Sorry, I want to show this because it's... In this case, for example, the drone is quite technical because you have to see the 3 different layers in the facade. So it's descriptive, but at the same time contains the instructions to build and to construct it. So they are very, very precise. And this is another of these competitions. In this case, it's for a railway station, but you don't know it's a railway station. It's just to find this coherency between the different elements, always trying to simplify. So the first ideas used to be complicated, and we have to do a strong work to domesticate them and to transform into a very, very simple system, or just looking for these generic answers to specific questions. No? So that means that there is a kind of technical culture, not having all the answers, but having a system or a method to make them. No? So I could offer this collection of drawings like case studies or like a prime book. So it's not so important the buildings they belong. What is important is to create this collection of case studies, no? A kind of catalog of rigorous catalog, or catalog of rigorism, but at the same time catalog of how simplify complicated situations. No? And for that, of course, the thinking in the construction process is quite important. How you, when I talk about simplicity, I'm also talking about how we have to imagine the construction process, in our case, for example, to avoid any pain in the process. No? So in my case, I don't have any interest or admiration by some complications in the construction when you see these buildings done only through the tremendous effort of people doing thousands of different pieces or whatever. It's not. I think the construction is a super deep way of thinking to create sophisticated solutions with very simple actions. No? So these steps are part of the design process and are implicit in these drawings. No? That's why we really do them. No? We do just to be sure that the construction process of our buildings can have a particular beauty. It's not that during the construction it's a mess, but at the end will be beautiful. No? Sometimes you see some buildings under construction that never are going to be so beautiful like they are at that time. So we hope to get that in the whole process. No? Well, this is, for example, the details of this small house of the first sketch. Really described like a collection of equations, no? Like problems of having a piece in the middle of the nowhere, that when the house this is a weekend house, so when the house is abandoned, how it can really get completely closed and compose a mute volume that you don't identify. If you are walking there, you don't identify it with a house. It's just like a volume, not revealing any domesticity, not revealing door, windows, or whatever. So this is a problem of architecture. It is also a problem, a question, conceptual and philosophical and whatever, but finally has a constructive answer through these drawings. No, this is the interior, or this one is more radical because this is a small house not touching the ground. This is also a kind of manifesto about how architecture usually has to transform too much the sites to build anything, and not accepting that perhaps the place is already finished. We just have to put the house. This is a commission where we convince our clients to don't do any garden, don't do any parking space, don't do any swimming pool, just to put a house there. No? So this is again something to be solved in this case with dry construction that we have to draw very carefully to be able of building it. No? This is from the outside. Okay, these constructive drawings are, construction system drawings are, of course, the condensation of a lot of inputs, a lot of information that is coming from other people. So we could say by ourselves, but one architect today, you can do one of these small models, or you can do a few sketches. But in the moment you want to start or to go on with that project, you need people to work. No? This idea that the teams of the people participating in projects is not usually revealed, we have tried to transform into a graphic representation. This also is coming from the idea that everything can be drawn, and the most important instrument architects have is drawing and talking. No? So basically, I think what we more do in offices is talking, sometimes by the phone, but this idea of meeting people and discussing situations with different knowledges is, I think, is the most attractive and creative moment of the teamwork that architectural offices are obliged to have. And also, we could say the project or the design specificity is the process of selecting this information, selecting this data, and use them for the project. So the design process, we could say, is to establish the hierarchy of the information that these people specialized and give to us. No? So the hierarchy of the importance of the questions is different, and the architect selects what of those incomes is going to be used in the project and what you are not interested, for example. So this is a process of selection of ingredients to make them coherent and to organize that system. So in the drawings you have seen, what is really condensed is the knowledge of a lot of people that are bringing this expertise to the team, and this person that do this drawing has to translate into only one, has to condense all these incomes. No? So I think this process has been always like this. No? I'm not inventing anything, but to recuperate a kind of conscience about it is important. No? How we really take all this knowledge by others and respecting them and understanding that they are going to tell or to transmit ideas and questions that we are not experts, but we have to manage them and to organize them. That's because I have this space for the teams. So this is a sketch. This is the sketch of a team. This is a very old sketch in our office, just previous to this, looking for a system to present our entries to competitions, these competitions that you have to present the team you are going to work with, and that's an important part of the selection of the short list selections in international competitions. No? So, because we are architects and we think in the power of these drawings, not only to think but also to communicate, we tried to invent a way of representing this idea of the teamwork that you organize, the people that you call to do a competition, and to transform it into the first drawing, the first plan of a project. No? So the first drawing is the team, the drawing of the team, of the people working together. So what you see here is in Spanish is a collection of typical situations like architectural office, client, consultants, no? It's expertise. It's quite simple, but looking for the spaces of communication, the spaces of participation, the common ground, no? of them. This is also a kind of tradition. During the process of design, the teams are growing. So you start a project with very simple of these diagrams, and the diagram is transformed into something more complicated. When you know how to read these diagrams, is when like a doctor knows how to read a radiography and you can make a diagnostic. You can also understand how complex or where are the weak points. No? These drawings, this is also a question of the diagrams, not only to represent, only to make some conclusions, also to make some conclusions, to understand, for example, in which point you are weak, or where you are not having strong enough, or why if you are doing this kind of project, you don't have this kind of consultant. No? And at the beginning, we are very simple, structural design, installations design, but now more other people like, I don't know, lawyers or communication or conceptual experts or whatever are appearing, and we are incorporating all these people like part of our team. And we are small parts there on the right. We are usually in the same place. No? So this is a map or a diagram of method of working. No, it's also an attempt to design a system to work. Perhaps we could say to looking for the personality of an office or whatever. No, this is in our case is the radiography of our day life, you know, and it's easy to understand how we understand, how we take this idea of the dialogue architecture very, very, in a very strong way. Even not being, for example, in our case, very obsessed about having hundreds of meetings. It's more to have all these people connected between them and creating this situation. No? So diagrams, as I think is the word always appearing in the conversation about drawing. I think one of the problems of the diagram, like it has been developed in the last times, is that the diagram has been transformed into drawings that most of the times are done, but knowing already what's going to happen. It's like when you do a model because you have 2 nights and you have a full of coffee and you do the model of the project, but not because you are thinking on discussing the project with yourself through these different instruments than the drawing. You do a model because you have a review. So diagrams have been also part of that, and that's because I think they have not got as an important role in the education and the work of architects as the magazines apparently show. I think that the question is that the diagrams usually don't design their own system of representation, and they are not pre-thought, no? In terms of saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to invent this way of represent these parameters because I have also a system to read them. And when I have done, I can read this and discover something that I didn't know before. I'm not representing in this case if there are more population in China than in Sahara, no? Because I already know that. I don't need to do that. No? If I do a diagram, it's because I want to discover that perhaps some densities that we have the idea that New York or Manhattan is too dense city, but finally you discover that other cities much more simple or not so high-rise buildings, for example, are more dense. No? So that's for what we need that. No? And you can to do a diagnostic, and if you invented the system of doing this is, for example, for a work in an island in the Atlantic, the Azores Island, the island of San Miguel. With this system, we could do the same process, the same representation in other 100 islands and compare them and discover some particularities not previously known, some unexpected conclusions. So I think this is quite important, and we can recuperate a role for these diagrams if we really can give them a role in this process of discussion. This is, for example, a floor plan where the divisions between different activities or different programs is trying to classify what kind of separation you need. So you need acoustic protection because on the other side is happening something that you want to protect from that. You want protect from the view. You want to have light but not view, not see through. So in projects we usually don't ask ourselves about this diversity, and we have like the same solution for a lot of different relations between the spaces. So that can let us to create some very, very efficient systems, because sometimes the division that you want to do, especially in some projects where it's more of a spatial definition of a room that you really want to create this proportion, no? But it's not because you want to do something independent for what's happening in the other side. And so this small catalogs of construction solutions, we do continuously looking for this relation. Of course, this is inspired in some other situations. This is our elevations, no, to also to know which is the parameters of relation between the inside and the outside, depending on the programs. Of course, this is not to do super accurate elevations, because functions change, we already know, but just to understand how things works and how things work, and sometimes how many times we make decisions that really doesn't happen. No? sustainability, for example, is an obsession about having these double facades or super complicated layouts. But at the end, there are not so many rooms having this promiscuous relation with the sun or with the heat. So you don't need to do these super expensive envelopes if you don't have that opportunity. You can. This is more just to identify which is the question, which is the topic, no? Which is the more repeated situation. I don't know. Just to have another knowledge about what we are doing, no? This is one of the buildings you have seen before, and it's exactly for that. Is to know, to discover that not all the building, huge building, is exposed, because we have to, this is a Congress Center, so most of the rooms have to be easy to be dark, like here, to project, so you don't have to protect them so much. So. And this is a drawing by Cedric Price, revealing some of these things, no, about how you have to protect this, in this case, a small house of the noise, of the views, and of doing these diagrams that Cedric Price used to do, just to try to obtain some information about where you can do your architecture weaker or lighter, or where you really don't need so much amount of architecture or amount of materials or technology. No? This is the same in section, no? Where is the protection against the water or against the sun, or etc. No? I want to show only 4 or 5 drawings to transport this idea of the diagrams to the research work. So, of course, we have seen some projects where we could say there is a research work inside the projects, inside the architectural projects of buildings to be built, let's say. But this is related to the researches, like PhDs, for example, or any kind of research, where, you read it? Okay, no. The people, this is a group of PhD in studies in Madrid, where there is a special group to start this PhD, no? To let the people define their topic and to help the people to find or to organize the first bibliography and to focus on the theme they really want to develop. No? This is directed by some professors that are not going to be the advisors. No, it's just this is training. No, this is just to be in the gym with these PhD students before they go out to confront what they want to do. This part of this training, the part of doing the diagram of the research, has become very successful and very important, and for many people a real strong discovery. No, this is, for example, where you put all the names of the people who worked with the idea of having fun in the design process in the 20th century. No? So you can have some people like, I don't know, Charles Andre Eames, doing very different than other people in other parts of the world, but all of them introducing this idea of the fun, you know? And to make this map was important for that. Or this, for example, which is the diagram of is very topic one, but is where certain key names in certain moments. No, you can see in the 70s Bernard was here, and at the same time. Rem was doing the book, and the AA was other people, and in the West Coast. So this is Juan Luis Valderrama dissertation that was developed, was started in Madrid, in this group, in this special group, was developed here, and they were conducted by Kenneth Frampton, and was defended in Madrid. No? So this is also a map where you can enrich during the process, and you can discover more coincidence and more particularities, especially in this case, because we have some ideas, or not always we have clear the time or the coincidences, or where really something happened. When this guy wrote this book, at that same moment that these other people were doing that. So I think it's also, or this, for example, which is to compare programs of landscape masters in the most prominent universities, just to really discover if our appreciation that some of the masters are very technical or are very designing or are more like in the projection scene or very green ones, if it's true or not. No? This is, every of these columns is one of the universities, and this is a system. No? This is the last, I think, it's a comparison, or is a study about the recent bibliography about the relations between nature and culture in the city. So I think that's this idea of making a drawing, making a map, like a process, something that you don't know what's going to happen, is very important. And I think it's the last of these lines I want to point here. So we have to kind of resume the drawing to talk to others. And this is reading, description, interpretation, conversation, action, and communication. It's a process, no? It's like I started saying everything is project. We should try to avoid this idea that the creative moments at the very beginning, this sketching, this establishing of the idea of the project is really the moment where the strong situation is created, and the rest is like big work. No? This is it's something like Spice used to say, no, that they do a lot of big work, no, following somebody or waiting for hours till, no, and only a few seconds of happiness, no. So I think this is also a pity, no? If we architects only are going to have happiness when we are having wonderful ideas for a few minutes in a plane, but the rest is, no? I think Robert Venturi said many years ago, I dedicate 95% of my time to bureaucracy and 5% to architecture. So this is our problem. If we want really to expand our architectural approach and our instruments, like drawing, of course, to the way we read the situations we have to confront with, to the way we describe them before we have any wonderful idea, how you describe the place where you are going to work, for example, how you describe the interest or the situation that you really are interested on in a competition, how you interpret it, which is already a design process decision. Perhaps you haven't drawn at that moment, but you are already making invisible decisions. How you establish with this interpretation your first conversations with your teams or with the people who can give you some inputs or are experts in topics that you are not. How you finally plan your action program, how you communicate. But without forgetting that even in the moment of the communication, you are designing, you are drawing, and perhaps it's the moment to do the sketch. Thank you. No, yes, of course, I take questions if somebody wants to make them.
People have to rush to studio, but that was an amazing lecture, so let's have some questions. Okay. Is that a hand? Good. Kate.
Very loudly, sorry.
That's okay.
I was fascinated with the description of the facade and how you kind of developed this kind of technical section from the beginning to the end. And I just noticed, obviously, you didn't show any renderings, so to speak, which are a big, and often in competitions, I feel like, and often in buildings to some degree, there's sort of the rendering, there's this rendering that's created, and there's this kind of backing into the rendering, and this, what you described is this sort of overly complicated methodology of a million pieces to make one image. So I was just wondering if you could talk about drawing relative to how your office presents its work. And if you could talk about rendering, and because it's really interesting thesis that you've mapped out, and that's sort of a gap, which is fascinating.
Yeah, well, if I have selected these drawings, it's because they have this abstract content. It's a codified language that we know, and we can discuss over these drawings. Apparently, not being read by people who are not in the technical world or in the architectural world. No? So that's one part. But the other part, of course, is this of the rendering. And I think that the rendering has had in the last times also this reaction about from architectural offices, like saying renders is something that you have to do for clients. No, you have to do because other people not having your knowledge and your perception and your abstract or conceptual capacity of reading these technical drawings have to see the reality. No? I think that that's wrong, or at the end we could say that's a part of the business, but also having a particular way of rendering in offices can really help a lot in the design process. No? Can be at this time a kind of confusion between these, it's like models. Perhaps is the moment of trying to bring again the renders to the office and introduce them like part of a process that is not going to go out necessarily, or if it go out is to talk with all these people of the team or the experts. No? We do very simple renders, very fast also, and very big sometimes. So we really print them enormous, and just to be able of drawing on them. No? So we use these renders to draw by hand. So we do a very technical process, which means to create this 3D model. But finally, is to do like the sketch on them, which is the most technical and precise, and most of the times we do, of course, when we are meeting with other people who are more experts in the structural design or in other things. No? So I think that it's also a part of the discussion which is interesting, and also could be a super interesting part of the pedagogical discussion about pedagogy of drawing, because I think we have to do something to introduce a kind of critical capability, the development of a critical capability of the production. No? So we have this problem that when somebody do drawings with a lot of effort, for example, a render with a lot of hours, it's quite difficult to make some changes and don't consider them like the representation of an idea that was, again, before in my mind, and I have just drawn during the whole night. No? So, yes, I think it's an important item, and I take for my next opportunity. Any more questions? Yes?
I can't resist about the historical references, since you have always been so sophisticated, and you made a couple of allusions to me, specific price, and so on. Kind of positioning your work historically. Can you say more about the way in which you and or your colleagues, even people in your office, might look at other drawings, historical or even drawings of your peers, and talk about those drawings?
Yes. Well, we have we do an effort, because this is something that you have really, it's an act of will, no? It's an act of will to say, no, we are going to do a drawing of this situation. We want to draw this, no? How we are going to do that, no? So I think this is the key point in all these processes. No? When you have to do something, but you have a computer and you have your program, your favorite program, and you start the computer and you start drawing with the same instrument that every day. No? So the question is, to do this, we should do this kind of drawing, or we should use this system. No? That is the moment of saying, no, I do this by hand. But we are not thinking that doing by hand is not technical. It's doing by hand for many other reasons. No? And in that case, we use historical drawings, like to look at them, not look at the solutions, not looking for, just like look at how Cedric Price is one of my favorites, and you know, I am not an expert, but but he has inspired our work a lot about how make this selection or this election of, no, because I think Cedric Price, because we have mentioned him, that had this idea of, no, now I'm going to do a collage with this photograph of this size. No? So you see some drawings in the Fan Palace that you never see in other projects, or you see some super technical drawings or other very fun situations, and they are specific, no, of these situations. And in the case of Mist, for example, there is a beautiful text written by a Spanish expert in construction systems, Ignacio Aparicio, I think it's translated into English, comparing all the sections of the technical sections of all the skyscrapers, all the office buildings by Mies van der Rohe, talking more about the relation between these technical solutions and the quality, or the quality, not the quality in terms of the characteristics of the space produced by them. No? So that's one question, and we use that. We use that like a library, and we look for them. And also we look for relation between architectural experiences and drawings. So in the reverse, we sometimes do this work of saying, how was drawn, I don't know, the cloud of Di Scofidio in Switzerland. How was drawn that? No? Sometimes you find that there is not a perfect relation, but sometimes you really get incredible surprises about how somebody that you didn't expect, because you know their work or whatever, but you discover that in one moment somebody had to make this decision of, well, how are we going to do this? No? So, and it also from history, no? Not only in this modern 50s situation, also going to the 18th century or whatever, when you say how this architect write in the plans, no, the sizes of the prices or the weight of pieces. No, it's an architect in Spain, Villanueva, who drawn in the sections incredible amount of information. So how you really can transform that into this? No? I think it's a practice. It's looking for also for clues to work, is to copy. No? More than looking for architectural solutions. No? It's looking for methods. No?
One more burning question?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. It was really, it was fantastic.